So if that was a little bit of a theory, I'm going to talk now about a bit of practice about Giving Tuesday. So Giving Tuesday is a project we've been involved in and has been popular over the last couple of years, which was really trying to think a bit differently about some trends in the non-profit world. And I thought I would just share a couple of the lessons we've had from Giving Tuesday in the hope that they might be interesting to you as you think about building strength in the non-profit sector and especially the cultural world here in Hartford. So Giving Tuesday began just over 2 years ago with a fairly simple idea, which is, you know about Black Friday, you know about Cyber Monday, what about Giving Tuesday? If you have 2 days that are dedicated to consumption, what about a day dedicated to community? If you have 2 days that are good for the economy, what about adding a day that was good for the soul? So that was the simple idea behind Giving Tuesday, and it grew more quickly and more widely than we had expected. So as of this last year, we had 27,000 partners in all 50 states here in the US, and in fact around the world. And what we began to see with Giving Tuesdays was a really interesting example of the cultural world and the non-profit world thinking differently about a couple of key topics. We saw a lot of innovation in Giving Tuesday, we saw a lot of technology in Giving Tuesday, and we saw a lot of people renegotiating the way that they engage with their communities. And I wanted to give you a couple of examples of some of the projects we saw last year, which I think were useful in terms of learnings. So the University of Michigan, who's had some challenging times as a state in recent years, they ran a Giving Tuesday campaign where they changed Giving Tuesday into Giving Blue Day. And blue is, I think, something to do with their university. Do we have any University of Michigan people here? There we are. Tremendous. So Giving Blue Day, they took Giving Tuesday, turned it into Giving Blue Day. Of course, 10 years ago, if you had launched a project and someone took it and changed it, you'd sue them, right? But Giving Tuesday, of course, is trying to encourage ownership. It's trying to encourage people to make it their own. And so for Giving Blue Day, they said, we're going to encourage our whole community, from the president to their alumni to their students, to become the fundraisers of our organization and help get people behind the important work that they do. They set a very ambitious goal of $1 million to raise. They ended up raising $3.4 million on the day, which was an extraordinary number, but there's a more important story behind what they raised. The reason they were able to do that, I think, was because they really thought very differently about ownership. They weren't saying fundraising is about our development department who have to ask everybody to get money. What they did was they mobilized their whole community. They actually had a movement of people on that day who got behind the University of Michigan. And I think one of the big lessons from Giving Tuesday is this idea that all of us as organizations need to shift from a point of view where we think about people as donors and get into a mindset where we are trying to think about people as owners. And what I mean by that is, how do they own your cause? How do we get people thinking about getting behind the things that we care about? You know, the most compelling reason in the whole world for someone to give money is because their friend asks them. There is nothing more successful in fundraising than a friend asking a friend. All Facebook is a series of groups of friends. That's all it does, right? That's its function. And thinking about how we can shift the ownership of our organizations couldn't be a more important idea. So I think that's a big theme from Giving Tuesday and an important theme for our sector. The second story from Giving Tuesday was an organization called Phoenix House, who help people who are in recovery. And for Giving Tuesday, they didn't do any fundraising at all. Instead, they said, well in advance of Giving Tuesday, they said to people, would you write a letter of support to someone who is in recovery right now? Now, of course, people who are suffering with addiction, and especially in recovery, often are estranged from their families. There's a lot of loneliness. So they said for Giving Tuesday, just write letters of support to people in need. And then on Giving Tuesday, they issued all these letters to people all over the city in New York to help support them and show them a moment of solidarity. Amazing idea that you can create that kind of civic moment, that kind of reaching out, because people are thinking differently at a time that they were thinking all about what they could buy. You're pushing people slightly to think a bit more about how they can give back. And then the Nightingale School in New York created a curriculum, a giving curriculum for Giving Tuesday. They said for Giving Tuesday, we're not going to raise any money for ourselves. We're not going to do any volunteering. We're going to do what we're good at, which is teaching. And we're going to create a free curriculum to help encourage philanthropy in schools across the country. So they put their educational experts together for a summer, and they released a free curriculum which is now being used all over the country, which actually helps a new generation of kids learn how to be philanthropists in their own right. These were really interesting stories from Giving Tuesday, which we began to see happening, didn't really expect any of them. These weren't planned by us. These kind of came about organically. But I think they started to tell us some important ideas that we should all be thinking about as a community. One of them is around how we master social media. So it is an extraordinary thing to think. One of the statistics I was most surprised by with Giving Tuesday last year was that 17% of all donations made were by cell phones. Right? I'm not going to ask people to put their hands up if they've got a good mobile fundraising strategy in this room, but if I was to ask that, my hand would not be raised. So we are all struggling with this fact that social media is happening very, very quickly, and one thing I would say to all of us is we have to make sure we are embracing and mastering new technology. For all organizations, whether you are in politics or in the arts or in anywhere else, one of the big fundamental challenges we should be thinking about is our organization changing as much as the world is? Very, very hard to do, but we have not made any bets on technology that have not paid off in a significant way. At the very worst, we've certainly learned a lot. And then finally, I think the thing that we've learned from Giving Tuesday, which has been really important, and I think is such a good reminder of why the work of the Arts Council matters so much, is it's so important we tell shared stories. There are so many people doing amazing things in this country, and our work is so often so fragmented. We're all chasing the same dollars, we're all chasing the same people. For all the good work that we do, there is often not a real sense of collaboration amongst us as non-profits or as organizations. But we increasingly are so much stronger if we can come together in powerful ways. Some of the most powerful Giving Tuesday campaigns were not campaigns where individual organizations went against each other, but when they came together. In the city of Baltimore, the entire city came together in Baltimore to get behind a campaign they called Be More Gives More. So they took Giving Tuesday and turned it into Be More Gives More. And everyone from the local pizza place through to the large banks there came together to raise funds for non-profits in Baltimore. And in one day, they raised $6 million. Now, they did that because they came together, not divided. And one of the reasons I think the work of the Arts Council here is just so important is it helps create a shared narrative. It helps all of us come together and make one collective argument about the impact of the arts and culture and creativity. And as we move forward in a world which is so uncertain, is so divided, the arts matter more than ever. And by bringing things together and telling one story, I think we can have such an extraordinary impact.